Hey guys, this is Sajid Dan one again here with yet another new video for you guys. And today I figured I'd go ahead and make a video talking about some of my favorite games of 2013. 2013 is come and gone, and I think it was overall a very great year for gaming, and I just want to share some of the games I really enjoyed this past year. These are by no means in any particular order, or is no game like better than the other. These are just a collective list of some games that came out last year that I just personally really enjoyed. There's still a lot of games I also need to play, and there's still games I had that came out last year that I still have like brand new shrink wrapped and I gotta get around to playing. But anyways, let's just jump right into it. Okay, and the first game we're gonna go ahead and start talking about is a wonderful game that is a result of a wonderful collaboration between Level 5 and the famous animation studio, Studio Ghibli. It was personally one of my most anticipated games of last year and one of my most anticipated RPGs. That is, of course, Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch. Fantastic game. If you don't know Ni no Kuni, it stars a boy named Oliver as he goes on this quest to kind of save his mother after an unfortunate incident. And he finds himself kind of teleported between parallel worlds, and this kind of due in part to his famous little character who follows him along called Drippy, and Drippy is kind of this tag-along character who follows him throughout his journey. He'll meet, along the way, Oliver will meet a wide range of characters and a great cast of characters too. There's some good supporting roles there. And overall, it's a really lighthearted story which instills a lot of good values like the strength of friendship, the strength of relationships, and there's also this interesting mechanic in the story where as you go to different towns, you'd be helping certain people kind of fix their hearts, I guess you could say, and they call it being heartbroken in the game, where it's certain people are missing certain parts and like certain attributes to themselves that is preventing them from being normal again and functioning like how they're supposed to properly function. So Oliver kind of helps a lot of people along the way mend their broken hearts so they can be normal again. So really lighthearted story there. The battle system is a mix between real-time action and also turn-based, so it's actually a really unique kind of battle system. I haven't really seen anything quite like it. It also uses this kind of Pokemon-esque mechanic where you have familiars, as they call them, and you can collect and level up different familiars, and you use them in your party, and each of your party members have their own personal familiars, and you can customize them and feed them and all that, and it's just really in-depth with the familiar system. It adds a nice deep gameplay mechanic there. So overall, I think it's a really enjoyable experience. It's a wonderful game, wonderful RPG with a fantastic art style, some really nice, wonderfully animated movies by Studio Ghibli. And overall, it's just a very lighthearted, heartwarming experience, and it's a heartwarming RPG in general. So really fantastic, cannot stress it enough, and that is Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch. Okay, next is a game I was really highly anticipating. I'm a huge fan of the series. It's one of my favorite RPG series, and I was really anticipating this game as well. And I think it wound up being a really fantastic entry into the series, and that is, of course, Tales of Exile for the PS3. Now, Tales of Exile tells an interesting story about two kind of divided nations, and one nation which was kind of like undiscovered for a long time. These two nations kind of conflict with their kind of beliefs on how to use these items called Spyrexes, which control the use of spirit arts, and a lot of the roads basically function on these ability to use spirit arts and stuff like that for everyday life. So it becomes a really big conflict right there with these two nations, and it's an interesting contrast with the story which kind of follows two heroes actually with Jude and Mila, and it's really interesting how they intertwine these two characters because at certain points in the story it'll actually like kind of veer off into that opposite directions, and you'll experience different things based off which character you actually choose to play as, so that kind of adds some replayability aspects right there. Overall, I think the writing is actually a big improvement in Tales of Exilia as well. The Tales of series is known for what they call skits, and these skits are kind of little in-between segments which happen, and they're very active, and they range from being absolutely, kooky and quirky to like more serious, and they can happen at any point in the game. And it kind of adds and helps kind of develop these characters more, so you kind of like these characters a lot. And this cast of characters is actually really, really likable. They're probably one of the most likable cast of characters as a whole, I think, personally. So I really enjoyed that. The battle system in Tales of Exilia is more similar in vein to other previous Tales of games. If you're not familiar with other Tales of games, they're known for having a real-time action-based battle system, so it's not necessarily turn-based. Everything's done in real time, and you control your character in a kind of small arena, and you fight monsters, and you kind of pull off certain combos and use certain skill arts, and it's really frantic, really fun, fast-paced, action-based. overall, I highly recommend Tales of Exile for any Tales of fans and fans of just kind of RPGs in general. They're really fun RPGs to play. And this one in particular is one of the shorter ones in the series, so it won't take you that long to actually beat it, but it's a wonderful experience. So I highly recommend Tales of Exile. And next is an absolutely wonderful strategy RPG on the 3DS that I really wasn't expecting too much from. I went into it not knowing a whole lot, and I didn't really know a whole lot about the series because I'd never played any of the other games in the series until this one. But this game absolutely blew me away and has easily become one of my favorite strategy RPGs of all time. I put it up there with the likes of Shining Force and Tactics Ogre and stuff like that. But that is the great Fire Emblem Awakening for the 3DS. I absolutely love this game. The story in Fire Emblem Awakening is a very traditional kind of story. It's about a rising evil that comes back over time to kind of wreak havoc on the world. And it kind of has this interesting idea of like time traveling and stuff like that thrown in there. But it's really interesting, really straightforward though, so it's not too complex. But overall, it's just a really fun experience. A lot of that fun experience kind of stems from the actual gameplay of this game. It's a fantastic SRPG, really straightforward, traditional, tried and true, SRPG. Not a whole lot of gimmicks there. It's based on like different classes, and certain classes are more effective against other classes. The maps are actually really wonderful because they're laid out in a way that allows for kind of strategic placement of units too. So there's a lot of strategy. There's a lot of in-depth abilities there. Based off how you do certain things could determine how quick a battle will go or how hard of a time you will have. But it's really fantastic. The character development in this game is absolutely fantastic. It's one of my favorite parts of the game. So there's this idea that as you link up units and pair units together on the battlefield, they'll build like relationship points and bond points, and that'll actually determine how close they and intimately they get engaged with the other person with. So it's really interesting. That stems a bunch of conversations with so many people, and I always enjoyed seeing what other people are gonna have to say and how they're gonna talk to certain people, and eventually that leads them to kind of in getting engaged and married to certain people, and they eventually have kids and offspring. So it gets super in depth, super complicated, but that kind of relationship aspect adds a kind of sense of danger to all the fights too, which I absolutely love. So because Fire Emblem is known for this idea of permadeath and stuff like that, so more so with the relationship, it adds a very interesting mechanic because you don't really want to lose anyone. It makes all the battles that much more intense. And the game world, the character design, just absolutely everything about this game is just done absolutely wonderfully. So I cannot recommend Fire Emblem Awakening enough. It is a fantastic strategy RPG which must be played for any strategy RPG fans. It's highly recommended. And next is a game from an RPG series that I'm just an absolute huge fan of. I love the series, and in particular the core series. And this is the kind of long overdue sequel to the kind of core series. It's the fourth installment in the core series, and for what it is, I went into it not really expecting a whole lot from it, and I was kind of honestly a little bit worried if I would enjoy it, but it's absolutely fantastic, and I'm glad I did. And that is Shin Megami Tensei 4 for the 3DS. Shin Megami Tensei 4 is the fourth installment in the core series, and it follows a kind of nameless protagonist like traditional Shin Megami Tensei conventions, and it follows this nameless hero through this kind of dystopian world and all that, filled with demons and all this just mature themes, and you'll meet a wide range of characters and an interesting cast of characters, and not only the characters who follow you, but just the characters you come into contact with are just really varied and engaging. It's just a really engaging world, but I will say that this game starts off extremely slow. Like the first dozen hours of this game are very slow and very repetitive actually, because you spend a lot of the early hours in the same place, kind of doing the same thing over and over and over until you actually get to the point where the game opens up, and you will know when it opens up because it becomes impressive and huge, and it's a big twist in the game. But for me, that's when the game actually really starts and becomes really wonderful. Shin Megami Tensei is just really known for its mature themes throughout its story, and this is absolutely no exception. There's some really, honestly, later on too, there's just some really disturbing stuff which they talk about, and there's a lot of disturbing context, and it's very adult, very mature. The gameplay is kind of like a traditional RPG where you're going to go around exploring different areas and towns and stuff like that, and then go into a lot of dungeons, and there's a lot of dungeons. And you fight with these demons, as they call them, and you'll have a party of demons on your side, which can be fused, level up. I mean, you can collect tons of demons to have a wide range of possibilities for a party, and all their demons have various attributes and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff to take into consideration there. You also have the ability to talk to other demons that you'll come across, so you can talk to the people and the demons you fight, and the abilities to that is kind of, you can either escape from the battle, or you'll get items from the demons if they like you, or they'll wind up attacking you, or you can recruit them to your team. Like, there's a lot there. And that's the overall theme about this game, is there's a lot there. It's very complex. It's a complex story which isn't going to be understood right away. It kind of takes some meditation in your mind. But overall, it's just a very complex, very challenging RPG, and it's definitely not for beginners, but for fans of the series and fans of kind of some challenging RPGs, I think you'll find a lot to love in Shin Megami Tensei 4. Okay, and believe it or not, next up is another Shin Megami Tensei game, and I wanted to give this game its fair shot because I know that this game is actually a 15-year-old game. It's actually a really old game. It's just a remake of an old game from Japan, but it's the first time we got it localized and translated and everything. So this past year was like the first time we could actually appreciate this game here in the West and understand it. And I'm so glad we did, because what we got was a wonderful old school style RPG with an absolutely fresh vibe and fresh setting. But that is the wonderful Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoners Soul Hackers for the 3DS. Now, what I like about Soul Hackers actually kind of stems mainly from its story. I think it's a really fresh setting. I think it's a fresh story in general, and RPGs are kind of known for falling into certain cliches over the years and all that. A lot of RPGs are built on certain cliches and anime cliches. So as a result, some RPGs kind of feel like, similar to other RPGs and all that, but this is just really unique. It follows a kind of cyberpunk dystopian world with cyber demons and the inherent troubles and power that comes from technology and how it corrupts certain things in society and stuff like that. It's a beautiful story, very dark, very edgy and engaging in a very unique way. Like traditional Shin Megami Tensei games, it's a first-person dungeon crawler actually, so it's more old school vein, and everything about this game kind of screams like old school because it is kind of a 15-year-old game. But you'll be going through various dungeons in first-person view, and you'll be fighting demons along with your party of demons, with similar to the SMT4 and a lot of the other SMT games. You have the ability to talk to the demons and engage in them with conversations, which, as I mentioned before, has various, positive effects and negative effects. And you also have the ability to recruit demons, because ultimately it's going to come down to having a great party of demons that you can fuse and all that to get you through a majority of the game. And it's just a really enjoyable experience. It's really challenging as well. It's not an easy game. It has a lot of old school kind of conventions in there, which might throw some newer players for a loop, and you'll kind of have to get used to that, because it is an upgraded port, but a lot of the old school mechanics are pretty much still there. But overall, it was a very interesting experience, a very interesting cast of characters, and just overall, I love the setting of it. It's just a very different take on RPGs. Felt fresh, and I really appreciated that. So if you're looking for a fresh kind of RPG experience with an old school vibe to it, definitely try out Soul Hackers, especially if you're a fan of the series. I think you'll really appreciate this. I really enjoyed it. And next is a game from an action RPG series, which I'm a big fan of, and this game was honestly part of the reason which pushed me over the edge on getting a PS Vita, because I really wanted to play this game. And I'm so glad I did. It's a wonderful installment into the series, and it's a wonderful reimagining of the fourth game in the series, but that is Ys 4 Memories of Celceta. Now, the story of Ys 4 follows our kind of nameless and silent protagonist, Adol Kristen, as he's on a kind of quest to recover his memories, as he mysteriously wakes up one day with amnesia, and he really has absolutely no idea what's going on. He hardly remembers his own name or who he is. So he meets a wide range of characters and a really enjoyable cast of characters. I really like the kind of supporting characters in this game. But these supporting characters, along with Adol, go on this journey to kind of recover his memories, while also kind of charting this vast unknown area of this forest. There's a big forest in the game which is just really massive and really sprawling, and you'll be spending a lot of time there in the early beginnings, and you'll be trying to chart this mysterious area because no one's really explored this area before, and it's a really interesting setting. Overall, the game world is just very fresh setting. Like, I love the game world. I think it's just really well crafted. the gameplay is very traditional for a lot of these games. It's a action-based RPG, so there's a huge emphasis on action and being able to pull off certain combos and a lot of frantic, fast-paced action. You have the ability to use certain skills and swap between characters, and each character has their own set of skills that they can use. And some characters are more effective on certain enemies than other characters, so you got to take that into account. I enjoyed the dungeons in this game. I thought the dungeons were really well crafted and a lot of fun to kind of explore. And there's also some interesting items which kind of change up how you explore the dungeons and all that. But overall, very, very fun, very enjoyable action RPG with a fantastic story. There's a lot more text in this game than other Ys games, and overall, it's just a very bigger Ys game. And I think you're starting to see the Ys series become a lot more contemporary as it adopts more contemporary ideologies and game design and stuff like that. And it's really beautiful what they're able to pull off in here. So if you're looking for a really enjoyable action RPG experience, it's really hard to do much worse than Ys Memories of Celceta on the PS Vita. Really enjoyable. And next is a game from one of my personal favorite game developers. I'm a big fan of the games he makes, and I'm just a big fan of him in general, but I'm a big fan of Suda51 or Gochi Suda. I really enjoy his games. They're very unique experiences, and they're just they're often very campy and enjoyable action games, and I think this game is no exception despite all the mixed reviews for it. If you go into it knowing what to expect, and especially if you know kind of Suda51 and the style of games he makes, I think you really won't be disappointed in this game. Is it his best effort? I personally don't think so. I think he's done some better games than this, but it's still really enjoyable, and I had a really fun time with this game, and that is Killer is Dead, and just a wonderful action game. Now, Killer's Dead's story is just pretty much like incoherent. Like a typical Suda51, it's how he crafts the story and how he tells these kind of stories, and how his team at Grasshopper in particular, how they kind of develop these stories is meant to be very ambiguous, nonsensical. They're not supposed to make sense. Like if you're gonna go into like expecting to understand the story, you're probably not gonna understand it. But him and how like his games are, he kind of just likes to get into your head and kind of screw with you, mess with you, really get you to question like what is going on. So they're very, kind of experimentalist games. They're very surreal in their storytelling and what's going on. And honestly, this game kind of has some funny moments too, just because of how absolutely outlandishly absurd it is. But I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed not knowing what was going on throughout the whole game. So it follows a character named Mondo Zappa, and he's a kind of hired executioner, and he goes through these various missions and various jobs to kind of execute these certain people along the way. The action in Killer is Dead is very traditional to kind of hack and slash. It's very hack and slash inspired. It's a kind of different breed of hack and slash. It's not as frantic as other hack and slash games, but it's a little bit more methodical. It's a little bit more strategy there because there's a huge emphasis on being able to dodge at the right moment, or knowing when to dodge could really help you in this game. But over time, it felt like the game in the beginning was a little kind of sluggish in the beginning, and it was really challenging in the beginning. But that's just because you're so limited in the beginning, and as you go through the game, it actually becomes more playable because you require more upgrades and stuff like that, which can make the game just tremendously more playable and that much more enjoyable. And overall, it's just a really gory, kind of absurd, frantically fast-paced action game, and it becomes really fast-paced later on. It's just a kind of cerebral experience. Everything about it is just really cerebral. And the art style in this game is by far the high point of this game, because the art style is absolutely fantastic. Overly saturated colors, avant-garde color scheme and color palette choices. Just really everything about this game is very experimentalist, and if you're looking for just an absurd experience, an absurd action game, then it's really hard to do much worse than Killer is Dead. I really enjoyed it for what it is. Just go into it knowing what to expect. And really briefly, I would like to mention one last game, which was kind of like a under the radar game for me and just kind of out of nowhere. And I think a lot of people are definitely not going to talk about this game because I feel like a lot of people really even haven't played this game, but it's a 3DS eShop downloadable game. It's part of the Level 5 Guild series, and the Level 5 Guild series is a collection of various games in Japan, but this is one of them, and that is Attack of the Friday Monsters, A Tokyo Tale. Attack of the Friday Monsters is definitely a game that's not going to blow you away with the gameplay. There's hardly any gameplay in the game besides, some light exploration of this small Japanese town. and some light card battling mechanics. But this game is really all about the story. It becomes more of a visual novel game more than anything else. But the story it tells is absolutely beautiful. It's just a really light-hearted, heartwarming take on childhood. It's really, I've never played a game that hits home and hits so close to home on the ideologies of childhood and what it was like to be a child. You know, whether it was being carefree or just having an endless amount of imagination. This game really hits that. It tells a better story in like 2 hours than most games can in 12 hours, in my opinion. So and like that being said, it's not actually a really long game either. It only takes about like 2.5 hours to beat it. But for what it does in 2 hours is absolutely fantastic. It kind of follows this kind of theme that these monsters come out in this Japanese town, and they come out on Fridays and fight each other and stuff like that. And the kids get really into it, and they have a card battling kind of thing going on based off the monsters and stuff like that. But knowing it as an adult, you kind of understand that it's actually a TV show which is being filmed there, so there's a conflict of like reality versus, you know, the kids' imagination and stuff like that. But it takes some interesting plot twists later on, which kind of lead to kind of mix up the kind of formula in the game and kind of question what exactly is going on with these monsters. So it's a really interesting game. If you're looking to kill a couple hours and have a fun little experience, I really never played a game which just tells a beautiful story this quickly, and it's really wonderfully done with a fantastic art style. The art style in this game, absolutely fantastic. It's incredible. So I highly recommend Attack of the Friday Monsters of Tokyo Hotel if you're looking for something lighthearted and heartwarming to play on your 3DS. So check it out in the 3DS eShop. And that is it for this video. I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and like I mentioned before, these are just some of the games that came out last year that I just personally really enjoyed. And you know my taste in games, I kind of have a little bit, you know, kind of more obscure taste. There's still a lot of games I really want to play that came out last year. There's still games that came out last year that I own that I still need to play, so it's just a lot of games, guys. It's a whole lot of games. But I'm looking forward to another great year in gaming. I think it's going to be another fantastic year for gaming. And overall, I think last year was just an absolutely wonderful year for gaming. From the blockbuster AAA titles to the lesser known games and obscure games to the RPGs to the indies. It was just another all-around wonderful year for gaming. I really appreciate that. So I also appreciate you guys watching my videos. And I'd like to thank you guys as always. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye, guys.